This video was sponsored by PCBWay. So over the past 6 months I've been busy with building or rebuilding a setup that is optimized for like content creation, and all in I want this to be properly done so that later down the line we can actually start producing at the quality I'd like to. And this is the final episode. We're finished with it. So it's pretty much first contact to this desk setup in the morning, start up the computer and I respond to sponsor emails or edit some videos, get some work done essentially. So we're thinking about making a box at the back of here so that we can manage all of these cables and do it in the same style as the battery box build. But then, all of these cables can be routed through that box and it'll be a lot more clean. Before I went ahead and did that though, I ordered some new cables because the monitor on this setup is 4K 144Hz and the 10 meter long cable, HDMI cable that goes to it right now only supports 4K at 60Hz. In the past I'd also be gaming on this setup. I haven't been gaming for the past 6 months to be honest with you, but I would like to get back to that sometime again. So I ordered an optical DisplayPort cable which supposedly supports 4K at 144Hz. In the first episode I actually made some extra gaps at the front of the setup, and initially I wanted to put like buttons or some kind of audio interface in there. Didn't really work out because I don't want the audio to run through the desk and get a bunch of interference. I do have a Blackmagic Decklink Quad capture card in my Windows rigs which are on the compute unit. This is basically a device that has 4 HDMI inputs on there, and you can input any device that outputs HDMI. And you can open it up in OBS, get a live feed, record up to 4K 60 FPS. So, capture card is really useful for if you're doing gaming content or if you have a camera on your setup and you're recording directly into OBS, which is what I'm doing right now. And the benefit of this is that I can check up in a moment when I stop the recording if it lines up in the NLE, so in the editing program. But the capture card has 4 HDMI inputs on there, and I'm only using 1 for the camera that's on the setup, so I wanted to convert this front panel into something that has HDMI inputs on there, so that if I'd like to record some short form content, for example, I just have a cable ready that I can plug the camera into, and that way you can really quickly check up on the edit. But basically I ordered some of these patch panel inputs, 1 USB-C and 2 HDMI ports. And the USB-C one is for supplying power to the camera, so that we can also do tutorials on the setup, for example. I first created a little test plate, and once that was all ready and done, I implemented that into a larger design for the main plate, so to say. I think I would have liked the design more if it had 4 bolts holding the patch panel inputs in place, but it only has 2 holes to mount it, so to say. And in the end it's not too big of a deal. So I already had some HDMI cables in the setup which initially went to the monitor. I just reutilized those and routed them into the capture card. And I connected the USB-C cable to a power brick. What I could have done is connect that USB-C port to, the hub that's inside of this desk. That way you can also use it to connect to the computer. But I know what's going to happen to that. There's going to be a hard drive stuck to it for like ages and it just won't work. So that's just power for the camera. But if you have any suggestions for additional ports on that thing, I probably won't film it, but I might actually upgrade it if you have a really great idea for something that could increase the content production speed of this channel via that little patch panel over there, because there's still some room left. So in the prior episode I also integrated the Stream Deck, which is really useful for like really mundane everyday tasks. Creating file structures, controlling the computer's input and all that kind of stuff. But, the panel that is on there right now, I printed out myself. The rest of the panels I printed with the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay, in UTR black and resin. So I wanted to send this one off to PCBWay as well and print it in exactly the same color and material. PCBWay also offers a ton of other prototyping services like PCB production and assembly, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, and of course also the print service that we're using right here. So that print arrived a couple days later and it was really nicely packaged. Definitely check them out. I'll leave a link in the description down below. So in the beginning of the video, I also touted this idea of creating a box at the back of the setup to route all of the cables through, and get into it right now. But initially the idea with this as well was to input some lights into it so that we'd have some ambient lighting on the setup itself. This room, I modified the ceiling lights to actually connect to my studio lights, and so I'm sitting in the dark, but I'm creating a new studio space, so that won't be an issue anymore. And I kind of skipped on the lighting situation, but it was a pretty easy process, you know. Just went on to Make a Case, which is a really awesome website where you can input your dimensions for the case you'd like to create, and then it creates the fingers for the design as well, so you can glue it together really easily. We can export that as a DXF file, import it into Shaper 3D, and then extrude those sketch layers, create that box, and then we modify that box to our liking essentially, and then we can convert that later into sketch layers again. Basically, I gave it some cable holes at the side over there, and cable holes at the top as well, but also some panels at the front over there, so that we can, you know, easily access all of the cables. These two gaps that I'm creating at the bottom segment of it were actually for those little spotlights that I was going to input into it, but that didn't happen. So I'll be contrasting this with some 3D printed inserts later down the line, just like the rest of the setup essentially. But I'll first take this to the laser cutter. Using this one from Tyvok, they sent that over for a video a little while ago, and it's still performing really quite nicely. I do think that the laser head is a little bit underpowered, but I keep using it because it's so easy to work with, even though it's very raw and rudimentary. Like I have some other laser cutters with a lot more smart features, but that also makes them, you know, I really like how you can just plonk a full sheet of multiplex in here, line it up a little bit, and create something quite massive. That's something I haven't been able to do with any of the other laser cutters, so really enjoying this machine. I saw somebody point out in the comment section as well that, you know, glue up jobs with these charred edges might not be as great because it doesn't soak into the wood anymore because it is so charred. I haven't had any trouble with it yet. Like I did the entire Compute Box build series with that charred wood, and it seems to be holding together really quite well. But yeah, you definitely keep that in mind. Like it's pretty superficial charring at this point, but it held in place really quite nicely for the previous build, so I'm hoping that it does the same on this one. After this I went back to Shaper 3D to create the inputs of the 3D print, and this is mainly because I want it to be magnetically attached with like a cover plate so you don't actually see the cables. Really super simple design. It's basically an outline of it, and within that is some holes for 10mm magnets. I wasn't entirely sure if these cover plates would work, if the like magnetic connection points were strong enough, but they seem to be quite okay. And I used some super glue over here to keep those magnets into place. Otherwise you'd be taking off the panel and the magnet would just stick over there. In the end, after screwing everything in place and putting that box into its proper spot, rerouting all of those cables, it looks quite okay. I was kind of, when I finished it, I was like, why did I build this thing? Well, it seems so stupid just to build a box at the back of the setup and it's only for the cables over there. But I'm sure we can upgrade it with stuff later down the line as well. Like if we ever get a hub or something like that, we can mount that inside of this thing or do some funky stuff with it, maybe with the lighting again. And yeah, in the end, I think it really cleaned up the entire desk, which is really nice. Next thing is the headphone mount, because I do have some Hi-Fi Santaras on this setup. Haven't used them in the longest time because I've just been using the speakers, but they're very useful for editing. I wanted to create a different panel on the other side, on the other gap, that just holds those headphones in place. So I printed this one on 2 components, and that has to do with, you know, not wasting too much filament with support structures, but also keeping the side that faces you on the build plate itself so that it gets a nice texture on it. So in the end, everything came together, but I'm not sure if it came together in the most, like beautiful way possible, but it is hyper functional, and it works for the type of workflows I have. And in that regard, it's very difficult to actually get it to look very beautiful, but I really enjoy it. And if you'd like to see a full showcase of the entire setup and how I utilize all of the gear on there to create the videos, or during gaming sessions, that kind of stuff, then definitely let me know in the comments as well. That's a full video in and of itself though, because there's a ton of stuff on here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope it gave you some inspiration for your own desk setup build or any kind of build. And hopefully see you in the next one.